Recording. Okay. And we are live. It is 6:08 on June 16th. This is the Human Relations Commission meeting. My name is Christian Phillips. I'm a staff member with City of Boulder Housing and Human Services. I am going to share my screen real quick and just do some quick announcements regarding our interpretation service. And then, Aaron, I will hand it over to you. Okay. So, for those on Zoom tonight, which is everybody, tonight we have, as always, an interpretation service. Voy a repetir esta información en español. Um, we have interpretation so that members of the public and our commissioners can listen and participate in tonight's meeting in the language that they choose. Should be a globe icon at the bottom of your screen. You may have to toggle your mouse over the menu to make it appear. Click on interpretation, and then you'll see English and Spanish, which are the languages that we will have available tonight. Please select the language channel that you would like to listen and participate in tonight's meeting. This is the image on your screen is what it will appear like if you are joining us on a laptop or computer. The image that's on your screen now is what it might appear like, what it should look like if you're joining using a smartphone. Ok. Ahora en español, para quienes estén participando esta noche, tenemos un servicio de interpretación. Por favor, hagan clic en el icono del globo en la parte de abajo de su pantalla y escojan el idioma que desean. Esta noche tenemos inglés o español. La imagen en su pantalla es como va a ver las opciones si está con nosotros por medio de una computadora o laptop. Y ahora van a ver cómo aparece en su pantalla de smartphone. Okay. With that, I'm going to close and I will pass it over to Aaron. Con esto voy a cerrar mi parte y paso la voz a Aaron.
All right. Cool. Looks like all five of us are here, 6:11 p.m. This begins the June 16th, 2026 meeting of the Human Relations Commission. First thing, any adjustments need made to the agenda? I'm seeing that we've got our usual things in discussion. We have welcoming Chris Reynolds, BVSD conversation, and open call for completed work plan items. Are there any other things that people want to have added to the agenda? Cool. Seeing none, we'll move on. Okay, now over to approval of minutes. Anything that needs said on last meeting minutes, or are we good to approve? Cool. I'll
I
move. Yep, go ahead.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yo secundo.
For those seconds, we shall approve. Do we need? I always forget, Christian. Do we need to vote on that? Yes. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Okay. 5 ayes. The meetings are approved. We will now move into open comment. And it looks, if I'm correct, Christian, like we have nobody for open comment.
Correct.
Great.
We do not have any members of the public.
Okay. We'll close open comment and move to action items. I'm seeing nothing in action items. Is that correct, Christian?
That is also correct.
God, I love an efficient meeting.
Just rolling along.
Great. Cool. We'll now move into discussion and informational items. First order of business, welcoming Chris Reynolds. Chris, thanks so much for joining us. I'm excited to talk. I think we wanted to ask you some questions regarding a few orders of business. I think that mostly Mindy and Jorge had. But yeah, first off, just thanks for being here and taking the time to come join us.
Well, thank you so much for welcoming me. I'm very excited to be here with the Human Relations Commission. I am Chris Reynolds. I'm a deputy city attorney in the Boulder City Attorney's Office. I've been with the city now for 11 years, and I currently supervise the prosecution section. I advise human services. I advise a few different local public bodies like the Police Oversight Panel, the Landmarks Board, and because I advise human services, I also advise you all. And so I'm really happy to be here, and it's very nice. I've met some of you before, and it's nice to meet you all.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Christian, can you remind me what items of conversation we have, or was it mostly about the BVSD thing for questions here?
Yep. So we have the next order of business. If nobody has any questions, or do you want to just do a quick round of intros for Chris so you can get to know the folks on the screen? You know, two of them already, but let's introduce the other commissioners, and then we
Yeah.
can bump into the BVSD conversation, which I believe Chris will use your knowledge for.
Nice. I think that sounds great. Hey, Chris, my name's Aaron. I'm the chair of the Human Relations Commission. I'm a local community organizer and tech entrepreneur, and engaged civic participant who's been, part of the HRC for 2 years now. So, 2? Yeah, 2 years now. So glad to be here and good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Let's go, Carlos.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Carlos Valdés. Yo tengo 5 años, bueno, tengo 4 y ya voy para mi 5.º. Es el último que voy a estar en la comisión. Soy el vicepresidente de la comisión. También trabajo mucho en las comunidades. Soy un conector comunitario también con la ciudad de Boulder. Y pues vivo aquí en Boulder, en la comunidad de Ponderosa, que está al norte de Broadway. Y le paso la palabra a Alejandra.
Gracias, Carlos. Hi, Chris. My name is Alejandra. My background is in bilingual education. I've been working for nonprofits. My level of expertise is now like social emotional learning at the schools and restorative practices. So I think I will learn a lot from you today.
Very nice to
Thank
meet
you.
you.
Do you see me?
Yeah, Mindy, how are you going next?
Sorry. Chris and I already met. So I am one of the newer members on the commission, started back in this past summer. And I think that's kind of it. I work in advocacy, and we already met, so I don't want to take up time telling you things you already know.
Good to see you again.
Nice to see you, and thanks again for being here.
Last but not least, I guess.
Mhm.
Well, nice to meet you, Chris. My name is Jorge Martinez. Joined the commission last year, almost at the same time as Mindy. So exciting, joining this team and learning every month out of this team. I arrived into Boulder 4 years ago with my family, and I'm about to retire. So that's why my wife allowed me to join the commission and say, okay, now you can do so. Nice to meet you.
Good to see you.
Cool. So I think from here we'll go into the BVSD conversation, and I think, it'll just be nice to have you as a part of this conversation, Chris, and see where it goes. I think Mindy and Jorge, this is your ballpark, so I'll pass it over to you.
Mindy, go ahead. I mean, you met Chris already, probably, good background there.
You met him too. And I always talk more than you. But I'll start. So we met with Chris. Jorge and I, along with Christian, about the BVSD situation that was brought to our attention by Crystal Chin and the parent group that she leads, really exploring what was in our purview and mission as the Human Rights Commission to assist, help in any way. And Jorge and Chris chime in. We did talk about the different ideas of, issuing a letter, and some of the things we had talked about. I think where we came we came to a bit of a conclusion where it might be a good idea to hear from the other side, because we've only heard from one side of this situation. And actually, Chris referred us to an ordinance, and I wrote it down, BRC 236C6, I think, that says that we could have a public hearing on this issue as under the purview of the Human Rights Commission, and that would then give the opportunity in a more public setting to have both parties present their issues and respond. And it would be in a very structured way that Chris and Christian both described, and I can let them speak more to that. But it did seem like, aside from, the one-off complaints that might come to the HRC, we certainly can't be the arbiter of all of these issues for a variety of reasons. It's a school district, county, not city, but also we just don't have the capacity or, I guess, charge to do that. So we had kind of we thought that was a good idea, was to do more of a public forum, to have both sides contribute to the conversation, since Jorge and I'd really only heard one side anyway. And I think that that side was looking to elevate this, and it would be elevated in a way that is very structured with some guardrails. And Chris and Jorge add to what I said.
I think you're spot on. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but we did reconfirm that, we should suggest them to issue a formal complaint to the commission, so Christian can formally catch that and mediate. And also, this is only for Boulder, because the group covers Boulder County, and we were very clear that it's only in the city of Boulder. But I think that's it. And we needed to formalize the discussion here. That's why we put it in the agenda.
Okay.
Great. I'm happy to hop in here. And so, as Mindy was saying, I did talk about a section of the code when I met with Jorge and Mindy. Anything that a board or commission such as this does has to be rooted in authority granted to it by the Boulder Revised Code. And the code section that establishes the Human Relations Commission is 2-3-6. And it basically talks about what the Human Relations Commission is, and then outlines its various kind of duties and responsibilities, and kind of like the scope of authority. And the specific code provision that Mindy was referring to is 2-3-6, section C6, 236C6. And so, as far as I understand what this kind of topic is about, it does seem to fit into that subsection. And I'll just read it so that we all know what that particular code section says, so we don't have to all Google furiously that code section. It says that the commission shall conduct public hearings and inquire into incidents of division and conflict on issues of human relations, and attempt to correct them by issuing public reports and recommending to appropriate agencies, public and private, implementation of actions necessary or helpful to eliminate such division and conflict. And so that seems to be the code section that would authorize, if the commission chooses to, hold a public hearing about this specific issue. Does not have to. I'd recommend, if the commission wants to pursue this, somebody making a motion, there being a second, and then voting on it if this is how the commission would like to act. But this seems to be the most appropriate sort of avenue for this conversation. And I do just want to recognize that it is a kind of a politically sensitive sort of topic. And as Mindy stated, that it seems like the commission, or at least part of the commission, has only kind of heard part of, like, some of the story. And so it'd be really important, if the commission chose to have a public hearing, kind of having both sides that have the equal opportunity to present information to the commission, and not kind of prejudge issues. This wouldn't be a quasi-judicial proceeding, because the commission would be basically providing a forum for people to provide information to it about this particular topic. And then based off of that information, the commission would be able to essentially make recommendations, non-binding recommendations. There isn't really an avenue for the commission to serve in any sort of kind of oversight capacity that could, like, order BVSD or anyone, like, to do a certain thing when we're talking about it in this certain way. There are ways that the commission can act in a quasi-judicial capacity, but what we're talking about is not one of those things. And so that's kind of the legal guardrails, is, appearing neutral, giving both sides equal opportunity to present information, and then recognizing that, the commission could, if it chose to, make recommendations. Again, doesn't have to. But that's sort of how I envision legally setting up this sort of public hearing. And it looks like Jorge either has a question or wants to speak next.
Yes, Chris, about the hearing. I understand there's only one other party, like there are multiple other parties, right? So multiple schools or entities. How do we do that hearing? Is that something we do specifically case by case? Because at the end, it's more or less what Christian does, when he receives a complaint, he tries to, negotiate between parties, and reach an agreement, and, hear both parties. So how do you imagine that hearing being structured?
That's a great question, Jorge. And it's a good point that, I don't want to say, like, there's only, one side and then another side. It's more nuanced and complicated than that. One feature of public hearings is the opportunity for the public to come and provide comment. I think for tonight, for example, we had open comment, where members of the public can come and speak to the commission, essentially about kind of like whatever they want to say. And I assume that there's like a 2-minute or a 3-minute timer, and then 3-minute, and then basically, so that's open comment, which is the part of it. Any local public body, at least in Boulder's public meeting, has open comment. A public hearing would have something similar, like public comment. And so this happens at city council, other boards, where might ask people who are there to provide public comment. They might say, "Oh, it's time for open comment." If you're here to talk, let's assume hypothetically that the commission wants to have this public hearing. At that meeting, there'd be some instruction saying, if you're here to speak on the public hearing, open comment is not the time. Wait until public comment for that public hearing. And so basically opening up the forum to allow people to address the commission on that topic. And so it would allow essentially any interested party to come and provide the commission with that information. It might make sense to kind of like reserve, hopefully that answers your question. And I also want to say that if the commission wants to have this public hearing, the logistics of it and exactly how it will be laid out, it's not does not necessarily need to be figured out tonight. That can happen sort of offline. The logistical administrative sort of piece of planning for the public hearing can happen outside of this public meeting. This public meeting would be more like bigger picture. Is this something the commission wants to pursue?
Well, Mindy.
This is more on the logistics, but I guess what I was wondering, and again, we can figure this out, like on open comment, it's almost like, well, at city council, they do limit it now, but here we never limit it. So it's as many people as show up for 3 minutes, which is usually one person, or two. But is there any reason why we couldn't do both sides get a certain amount of time to present? And it's because I can see a situation, and again, the logistics I don't want to take up too much time, but I could see a situation where, you have this large parent group that's pretty large and has a lot of things they want to say, and then we have one administrator, right? So
Mhm.
it would be, if it's per individual, it would be a 3 minute from this guy, and then, and so I'm just wondering, could you do it where you get, 15 minutes for this side and 15 minutes for the other side? Or is it up to us, or is it?
I mean, ultimately, it is up to the commission in terms of how they want to how you all would like to run your meeting. I might have some recommendations, but what you're describing in terms of let's say this citizen parent group, um, you know, giving them 10 minutes or something, 15 minutes, and then BVSD the same amount of time does not detract from the idea of there should still be public comment, because people might not have a side and they might want to come and address the topic generally, and they might not pick a side. So many times because this would be like a sort of special agenda item, if the commission wanted to allocate 15 minutes for BVSD and then 15 minutes for the parent coalition while still having public comment, that would be in line with practice of other local public bodies. And I see Elizabeth has her hand up. And hopefully that answers your question, Mindy.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. To file under perhaps stating the obvious, but I think with any discussion that the HRC has, whether it's just a topic in your own meeting to which you can invite informational speakers, holding a workshop or a training like we did within the last couple of years on human trafficking, holding a public hearing, which is what we're talking about now. Just being thoughtful, whatever the issue, whatever the venue or medium, of what outcomes you're looking for. And so I think just always being really clear, right? The difference between a hearing, a forum, a debate, something that's trying to achieve resolve conflict in the moment, or is it to allow community members to share opinions and concerns? Any or all of those things might be valid, but I think just encouraging you all to be really clear with expectations first, and then, kind of think about what kind of construct, and Chris has laid out these options. If you decide to pursue this at all, is just the best thing to achieve a goal. Generally speaking, part of what our staff role is to just try to help kind of inform you and provide guidance. Christian, certainly myself, Chris, others, so that your time is effective and community members feel like they know what to expect and understand about what you can do and what can't you do. So that's not really instructing, but just kind of adding another layer onto what Chris has shared. It's not, in my experience, since I've been in the city and in our department, there have been HRC members have held hearings and sometimes joint meetings with other city entities. I can't recall a time when there is a full hearing kind of about a situation happening at another institution. Like Chris says, doesn't mean it can't happen. But just, I think just being really clear about what the outcomes are, will help structure the meeting if you decide to pursue this route. And again, Christian's role is to, as Jorge said, take those complaints when they come in. That's a process that's open to anyone. Very defined process as well, not mutually exclusive.
Cool. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, and thanks for like laying that all that out, Chris. It's like helpful to understand that it's like it is within still like the purview to hold public hearings and like make recommendations on public and private. It's helpful to kind of like understand that there is space for this. Yeah, I do think it's an important point of conversation about like how we would want to orient and like what would be the goal of this conversation. And so maybe Mindy and Jorge can speak to that a little bit. One thing that I would like to understand a little bit from Christian and Elizabeth is like if you can maybe share some examples of like past public hearings that the commission has held, just so we can like have some idea of some potential shapes just as we take a look at this.
Elizabeth, if you have information on that, that would be terrific. It would have been before my time, so I'm not a wealth of knowledge there.
Yeah, and I would have to do a little bit of digging and consulting as well. I actually remember an HRC public hearing that I attended before I worked for the city. So I was attending as someone who, was interested in the topic, and personally. And there have been other topics where that kind of were on the HRC agenda where presenters, right, were invited in to share on the topic, and there were a number of people who were queued up for comment because they knew of that agenda item. So I will have to dig back a little bit. The public hearing that I recall, again, not as a city staff member at the time, was generally on the topic of people's experiences with racism in the community. And so it was really not designed, I don't believe, as a point of conflict resolution kind of in the moment or kind of different parties speaking to a same issue, but a platform for people to be able to share with the commission what they were experiencing, because the commission just wanted to open themselves up, hear those comments, and think about what other types of actions they might be able to take to help the community and advise the city. So that's one example. But again, I certainly don't want to speak out of turn or have a faulty kind of memory about other public hearings, but there haven't been many in the time I've been supporting the HRC.
Cool. Yeah, I generally like the idea of a public hearing, and I'm like also like, yeah, feeling what I think a few people are naming. It's like there's a way that a public hearing in this could help a lot, and there's also a way that it might not help. And I'm always concerned about a public hearing that just becomes like let's pile on, and potentially exacerbate division rather than help it. And so I would be curious, yeah, to get a more full picture of this, and to try to understand how this can be helpful. I'm curious, Minnie and Jorge, if you can like unpack a little bit more of like what you understand about the situation and perhaps like what you think would be a helpful conversation that would like and what would be like a beneficial outcome you would be wanting to move towards here.
I think it's multiple issues that we heard from them, from discrimination, right, to lack of attention, to kids' mental health issues. So it's not just one issue that they're complaining about. It's multiple, but specifically on the discrimination one is where we thought that it landed into the commission arena. Mindy, I guess that those are the key issues they're facing, in the schools, and the schools not listening, right, to their complaints or not acting upon their complaints.
Yeah, I think again, knowing that we only have heard one side, right? But what the stories that were shared were at the meeting that Jorge and I attended, which was a public forum, just, in a very different setting, were many examples of harassment, discrimination that when complaints were filed, they went unacted upon, um, and that their main issue is that they feel that the school district shouldn't be the ones who have oversight over this process because they shouldn't be, they're having to police themselves and they're not doing it. Um, and then they don't have any avenues otherwise. So, they've been pushing for an independent oversight, third party. That's their main goal. We can't do anything about that, obviously. Um, I think, when we spoke at our last meeting, we talked about maybe a letter, just, bringing it to the district, that we have heard these concerns and wanted to raise it. Again, we didn't get very far with that because I think we wanted to talk to Chris about, um, what we could and couldn't do. And also, it is hard to put ourselves out there without actually knowing the full playing field. Um, you know, it is relevant to the conversation that there was a front page story today, about the school district being sued on Title VI. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. Um, I can put it in the chat, but I would say it's worth reading because it reinforced, what this group of parents has been concerned about. So, but I think your point, Elizabeth, about what are our goals is a good one. And I think we should think very carefully about that because certainly we don't just want to have something that makes things worse, not better. Um, and I think it's more discussion to kind of figure that out.
'Cause it sounds like one potential shape. It's like we just basically say like that we're holding a public hearing on issues of discrimination in BVSD, and then we're just giving a space because like there's been spaces, but it's like sometimes people want another space, and then we're giving a space for people to share about that and potentially share from the parent side, share from the school district side, just like giving a space for people to come and share, which helps us all be more informed on it. And then there is like then an opportunity for us um to make a recommendation if it feels like we have an understanding. Like it seems like that's one potential here. Is that kind of what you're seeing as how you think we would orient with this, Mindy, or do you have a different idea?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what our recommendations would be, to be honest, but I think we're not there yet. I think that they're, like I said, elevating their concerns since they feel they keep continually are being shut down. There's there's a little bit of support there in helping, bring this to light in a way that
Mm.
hopefully is balanced because it's in a structured forum, so to speak. Maybe it's not a
Yeah.
hearing. We say it's a forum. Um, Jorge, what do you think? Or anyone else?
Yeah, I think what they're looking is for visibility, right? And being heard. So these come to a discussion. So the hearing and the idea of doing it is great. Especially as we said, we hear both parties and they can talk about it and question, why these people have not been heard or paid attention of. So it's that visibility that they saw in the commission as an opportunity to do so, right? Uh, I don't think they're expecting us to fix their problems or solve their problems, right? It's just the channel for them to bring that visibility.
One thing that I'll add is like I'm hearing two like potential shapes for this. Like one is like there's the public hearing, which is just like we're just like okay, everybody takes their turn and is heard, and then there's a very different thing of like a forum or like facilitating a dialogue, which can be much more generative, but also requires a lot more skill. And I don't know how much of that is in our ballpark. I mean, I have a good bit of experience facilitating dialogue, but it's like I don't know how much that is the commission's role to like be facilitating an active dialogue through conflict, versus just having a public hearing where we just give everybody their 3 minutes to say their piece, and then that's it. It seemed like you might have something on that, Elizabeth.
Not necessarily, just reflecting that, one of the requirements of being a commissioner is not that one be a professional in conflict resolution. So I would just say that's not our expectation, right? That everyone is kind of automatically expected to or christened, right, to perform that role. So I think it's a good observation.
Chris.
Thank you. Just want to talk a little bit more about, the HRC's role in a public hearing. There's the information kind of gathering stage of it where people would come and provide the commission with information, whether it's coming from BVSD, a parent, interested community member. So that's part of it. And then after that time has passed for the public hearing, then there would be space for you all to discuss like what you heard. And because in addition to conducting the public hearings on this topic, you could, if you chose to, provide recommendations. And so that would be like a deliberative kind of process that the commission could participate in, and whatever those, if it chose to, recommendations would be up to you all. So it wouldn't just, it would be creating a forum to kind of get information in front of the public and from the public, but also you all would have the opportunity to like deliberate on what you heard. You're not, again, going to be making any decisions that are going to be like requiring anyone or any institution to do anything. But if you had the public hearing, then part of that would be talking about any potential recommendations that you might have, and so there would be kind of a more role for analysis and deliberation. And so I just wanted to put that out there as well to help people think about what this would look like if it happened.
Cool. Okay.
So-
That's helpful.
Sorry. So we are allowed to make recommendations, but that doesn't mean that they need to be implemented.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Any more discussion around that, or is there like any desire to like make motions for any kind of action here?
I just have to doubt on whether we do a specific hearing for it or we just use our meeting to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, Chris, you want to say something on this?
Just want to clarify, Jorge, are you asking if this would be a special meeting or just a regular meeting of the HRC? Is that your question?
Yeah.
I mean, my thought would be that it would not have to be a special meeting. It could be a regular meeting because this is within the kind of the code allows. Yeah.
It would be a regular meeting, but we would like specify that during this meeting there's a public hearing. The same way city council meets on Thursdays, and often on city council meetings they always have open comment, but then they also have like a public comment section on a specific thing that they're bringing up. I think we would.
Yes, they have public hearings at their regular business meetings.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how. I think this is tricky as well, because when there's a group of people coming in with their own recommendations, and then we make our recommendations, I wonder if they clash, and that will escalate things. I'm just wondering how to be strategic while also listening and being effective and valuing people's time. I think that is something that we need to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Alejandra. I mean, for me, I think it was more about what Jorge said, giving them a little more visibility since they feel they've been really, their concerns have gone unheard. So, obviously we need to know what we want to do and we need to set expectations with the groups as before they come in, that what the goals of the meeting would be. Because I'm not sure if we make recommendations that are completely non-binding and, not likely to be implemented, if that's even a realistic goal of ours.
Yeah, I mean, two goals for me, it would be like, one, like, can we let a group that's not feeling heard be heard? And if we open that space up, there might actually be more groups that we're not even hearing yet that want to be heard. Like if we put the proper label, and the label may be discrimination in BVSD, it may be something else. If we like host a public hearing about that and just give people an opportunity to share perspectives on this, that might be helpful for that. And if this is a real thing that's happening, like, I think that if we can use our influence to like say like, hey, BVSD, we're recommending that like you take a look at this based on that, like it does hold a little more ground when a 5-person human relations commission makes a recommendation versus parents. And so there's an opportunity that it can help. There's no guarantee, but that's just my thought. Christian?
Yeah, as we're talking about this, I've been trying to formulate what this thought is. And we know that there's one group that is like very motivated and more than certainly will show up in numbers that whatever we want to define as. BBSD, one of the rubs of or challenges of the situation is the parents are not getting communication from BBSD. And I guess I wonder, is there like what happens if they don't agree to come to a public hearing? I don't believe, Chris, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe we can compel anybody to come to the meeting. So do we I guess, what are the risks involved if we try to set this up and then don't get anywhere with BBSD as well, and we have another kind of like point of frustration, or we created another point of frustration there. It's just like something that has been kicking around in my mind, and I don't know. I guess, is that a concern for folks, or what would we do in that situation? Or what might we do before we make a decision if we want to have a public meeting? Do we reach out to both parties and see if there's just kind of like take a quick pulse check there or anything, if we can get any communication from them? Just ideas that are coming to my mind there.
Yeah, Carlos.
Estoy de acuerdo en todo lo que están hablando, pero yo quiero saber si antes de nosotros poder dar una recomendación, tenemos que reunirnos a deliberar y después sería mostrarte a ti cuál sería nuestra respuesta o nuestra recomendación, Chris.
I think there's no requirement that we make a recommendation. I think the idea would be we do a public hearing and then we deliberate, and we can deliberate in that meeting, we can deliberate in future meetings. And then if we move to make a recommendation, then we can. But I don't think the public hearing would necessarily be held under the context that we would be making a recommendation. I think it would just be held under the context of we would like to understand what people's experiences are with discrimination in BBSD.
And I agree with that, Aaron. And then I would just add that any action that the commission takes as a body would have to be kind of in the light of day, in a public meeting. So it wouldn't be like and I think everybody hopefully knows this, couldn't happen behind closed doors. It would have to be in daylight. And I think that's kind of like part of the purpose of having a public hearing is like having it be, the public is welcome, it's on YouTube. So I just wanted to make that also clear that, if you had the public hearing, that you then it wouldn't be like a jury deliberation that's behind closed doors that nobody is watching. It would be in the open. So I just wanted to say that.
Yep. Cool. Given all of this, I'm wondering if people are feeling like that's the right orientation. Like, is that what we should do? What should we do that? And when should we do that? Alejandra.
These are just my thoughts. I think people value being heard. And I think if it goes on record, it means something. Um, yeah, I have so much on my mind because I would like to know the root cause of what is going on. Me working in education for such a long time, I know it's hard, and I know there's gaps in our systems that are not effective, and it's no one's fault in a way, and I feel like if all schools can get to the bottom, to the root cause of their problems, I think that would be great. I wish I could do that. And I think I'd be excited to listen to people.
Yeah, I think I feel very, very similar. If there's like something that I feel like we can add value is just like creating a space for listening. It doesn't mean we're necessarily going to agree with all the perspectives or take the recommendations that this group may want us to take. But I think at the minimum, what we can offer is a space for these people to be heard, and then we can let that inform our discussions.
And truly, as we hear from both parties, just reconnect to the the goals of the commission, right? Whether what we're doing is feeding those goals. And for me, it is. When we talk about discrimination, okay, why the commission exists? Does it exist for things like this, right? That's a deliberation I think we need to have after the hearing, regardless of recommendations or not, right?
Yeah. It's definitely something I'm interested in this commission existing for, like a space for the hard discussions to be had in Boulder. One thing that I think might be really helpful as we're like moving towards this is providing proper context. Like, is there what's like the context? Like Mindy shared a Daily Camera article. I'm curious what other context, where have conversations already been had, that's in this ballpark, because if we can provide that context, we can be a little more informed about where we're moving. And then that can also be something that we can like use so that people can be informed about what this hearing is even about. So we're reaching out to try and get more people here, because ideally we're hearing many perspectives and not just like the one group that really wants this, but ideally we're creating a space that brings other perspectives on around this issue. And to do that, it would be helpful to have proper context so that we can properly like find the groups who have the important perspectives to offer here. Elizabeth.
Sorry, I'm not a commissioner. But I did just want to say to the Alejandra's comment about kind of root cause, and this is not a recommendation, but just kind of from our staff vantage point, I think we're fortunate to know that there are a lot of organizations and initiatives, obviously within a school system, but notably outside of a school system, where the issue of youth discrimination among youth is an active topic, right? And people are working to address these issues, including through peer kind of support and training. We see that evident in many, many nonprofit organizations and community initiatives in some of the work that our own city departments are doing with departments like Parks and Rec, Open Space Mountain Parks that have youth programs that they run. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there as just if one of your questions as you're kind of mulling around these ideas is if it's topical, right, and not only about the efforts or in issues taking place within a school district, if the topic is how's discrimination manifesting among youth, that's a very different forum, right? So I'm not making a suggestion there, but just pointing out if that's something that you are thinking of, that again, staff could be helpful in just helping share with you all, what kinds of initiatives are taking place, including initiatives that the city itself is supporting.
I like that. And creating a lens like that might make it feel less like blame focused. Like in this, it can become very easy of like pointing this finger at this one organization. I think it's Alejandro pointed. It's like people in education are in a really complex and challenging place. And so doing something that's not like doing a big finger pointing at like just one institution, but creating a space for a larger issue to be looked at, could be really interesting. And yeah, I like what you're saying, Elizabeth, that might allow you as staff to help create a more comprehensive report that helps us be informed and also helps us bring the right issue in.
I will caution that this group will point a finger. I don't think that that's avoidable. And so I just, we need to know that going in and not that there's, this is what they're pushing for. So I just want to be clear, like that even if our intention is to provide a broader kind of discrimination, youth and discrimination, let's not point fingers. I would guess that they will,
Yeah, and I think like our job as a commission may be to open up the space where some of that is present, but maybe do it in a way that we're like not doing this big like joining and pointing fingers. I think one of the things we can do in our discussion is hopefully hold a little bit of nuance, but ideally we can do that in a way that's not leading a group to feel like dismissed. Like that would not be helpful either if we create a space for them and then just like dismiss. So. Yeah, I don't quite know what the right approach here would be, but I think creating some kind of public hearing and doing so under the awareness that this group will probably be the loudest group at that public hearing, I think is a totally reasonable thing to expect. So yeah, curious if anybody has any suggestions about what they think the right strategy here may be around this.
I think the goal should be for them to be heard. That would be like the number one goal.
Yeah.
And so if we try to like impose, I don't know what that looks like, for example, but like our statistics, our data, it might come across as like we're trying to explain to them what the problem is instead of them coming to us for a problem. And I think it's well intended. And I did agree with that initially because I think it's a great idea. But when people are angry and frustrated, I think just allowing them to speak
Good.
is effective. Yeah.
We just need to follow our guidelines on the hearings, no? A specific amount of time.
Yep.
Just our mediator there. No, would be Christian, maybe.
Yeah, I think I can probably be
yeah.
sets people off at the 3-minute point if that's in my
yeah. So it's and I guess how do we communicate about the hearing? So we get in touch with because we haven't got in touch with the other parties, right?
Yeah. I mean, my guess would be, I think what we should do is we should decide on what the framing is. Like, is our framing discrimination in BVSD? Is our framing very specific, like claims of anti-Semitic discrimination in BVSD? Is our framing broad, like youth anti-discrimination or youth discrimination? Like, I think we need to kind of decide what our framing is. And then we want to figure out who we want to invite to that, and what context they need. And hopefully Elizabeth and Christian might be able to help support us a little bit in some of the research and the context providing, and maybe some of the figuring out who to invite. But I think that's also a little bit on us to understand what perspectives are helpful here. Yeah. And then we would need to figure out timing. Like, is it the thing that we want to try and land next month? Or is this a kind of thing where we want to like have enough conversation this month and then like have our own conversation with some more context next month and then do it? Which is nice to have more time. And I also recognize that like sometimes like these things require a little bit more immediacy. And so I think I would rely on Mindy and Jorge to give a little more context of what would be helpful here.
I just want to make clarity. The article today is about anti-Semitism. Their issue was not. It is broad. It is, anti-Asian discrimination. It was a disabled child had been discriminated against. So I would never want it narrowed like that. I think that they have a broad coalition of, unfortunately, of children who have been discriminated against for a lot of reasons. I almost feel like I would like us to like mull this over a little more, and think it through, because I do think it is complicated and nuanced, and we want to make sure we do this right, because we certainly want to provide a forum that makes people feel heard and maybe better and not worse. So it is summer, so their kids are not in school right now, and I'm sure everything feels pressing for them because they've been pushing for a while. But I also feel like we do have time to think maybe before school starts again, right?
Cool. That's helpful. That's really helpful context. And so maybe some of our work can be mulling this over, doing some research. Maybe Christian can help support with some research on that angle.
Yeah, something just to also consider as well, like if we want more time for like the commission, each of you commissioners to like take this conversation, put a pin in it, think about it for a little bit, maybe discuss, maybe not, never mind. What I was about to propose was maybe a breach of sunshine law, so don't do that. I won't go down that path, but just mull it over, and think about it. We have always the option for subcommittees. So two folks, Mindy and Jorge, you have been sort of carrying this initiative forward. If there's enough interest and interested parties, two folks who want to take the lead, if it is Jorge and Mindy, or if it's others in this group, if the energy is there, something that could happen between meetings would be two commissioners come together. I'm happy to coordinate that and support that, and maybe take first shot at putting a finer tune on what we've been discussing now and bringing it back for more conversation at the next meeting. So just that's also an option I wanted to make sure folks were aware of.
I'm feeling curious, or Carlos, you have something?
Sí, estoy pensando en que si queremos hacer esta reunión, como se dijo al principio, tenemos primero que hacer una moción y votar por ella, si estamos todos de acuerdo. Y ya después planear para cuándo y hacer las investigaciones que se tengan que hacer.
Yes. I think part of the discussion was that we would do some research and then we would probably propose a meeting at our next meeting. I think the idea is that maybe in 2 months we do a public hearing, but it sounded like we might prefer to have some time to mull it over before we like decide and announce a public meeting. And so I think the current thinking is we would decide that next meeting if I was following the thread of conversation. I'm seeing nods. One curiosity I had, Alejandra, just because you have a background in education, it sounds like you might like to be maybe more engaged and part of that subcommittee. I'm curious about that.
I would like to be engaged, but I also want to be respectful of Mindy and Jorge taking this on. And I also like by me joining, I don't want to complicate things with the sunshine laws and like everything. But I do want to just be more informed and educated and hear more about it, read more, because I do have, I guess, a perspective being inside the education system.
Well, maybe one thing, if it ends up being me and Jorge, and the truth is, I don't have proprietary like if you want to do it, Alejandra, that would be okay. I could just give up my taking the lead on it. I mean, but that being said, I think we are allowed to individually have conversations. So I could have a conversation with you, Alejandra. Which then if we're a subcommittee, then I bring that back to the subcommittee. Is that allowed?
You can't bring conversations with Alejandra back to conversations with Jorge between meetings, because that would basically be a conversation between 3 people.
Okay.
So it would need to
Well,
be
it
between
would just
Yeah.
help it could help inform how we maybe move forward, if we have individual conversations. But I cannot then say, well, Alejandra suggested this.
Exactly.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
That's correct, Chris. I'm reading that right.
Yes, we want to avoid a serial meeting where, one person talks to one person and then this person talks to another person. And then like, even though there's only two people kind of conversing at once, a decision is made because of all of these individual one-on-one conversations. But generally speaking, members of the commission can have one-on-one conversations, and like between now and the next meeting, Mindy could talk to Aaron or Alejandra. We just don't want to have a perception that these one-on-one conversations are being used to make a decision outside of a public meeting like this.
Yeah. So it seems like the best strategy now is like you're already taking lead on this, Mindy, and so like continuing to take lead. And as the one taking lead, you can get perspectives from other commissioners, but you can't be doing that in a way where you're basically like going and like carrying those conversations forward. And so you and Alejandra could do a lot of one-on-one conversation, which will probably be very informative because I think you two have a lot of perspective on this. And that just can't flow into
Got it.
the conversation you're having with Jorge.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for that clarity.
Jorge, I'm curious where you're landing on this and like where your energy is at in terms of engagement on this project.
I'm happy to engage. So, I mean, if we need a subcommittee to work, I'm happy to participate.
Cool. Because then the conversation would be, do we need to have a well-defined subcommittee, or is it just Mindy and Jorge is one subcommittee and Mindy and Alejandra is another subcommittee? Is part of why I asked Jorge, just to try and figure out the right shape to address it.
Yeah, that's the problem of not being able to meet more than 2 people. I think we can articulate it the way, Chris suggested. I mean, one-to-ones, and then we come to this meeting and we share, a work plan. Because what we need now is that work plan on how do we elaborate that hearing, what's the structure. I've never done a hearing, so we will need to figure that out.
Cool. Okay. do we feel like we have enough clarity for people to stay engaged for the rest of this week? Both for commissioners to have the conversations they need to have, and for Christian to like get the research needed. Do we
Mhm.
all feel like we have enough clarity?
So we'll
Yes.
keep pushing the ball down the field. Jorge, me, Christian, with some other, conversations that help inform how we think about this. And then we'll come back to our next meeting with maybe a more formalized plan of what we might present as
Mhm.
the forum or hearing. Okay.
The goal being to do the hearing in 2 months' time, right?
I think
With
we're
the
holding that
meeting
goal.
of
Like, there's no decision made yet, but I think we're loosely holding a goal of a hearing in 2 months.
okay. So
Yeah.
that will be the hearing of August.
Yeah.
Sorry, the meeting of August.
Yeah. And I think the clear goal is that we decide in 1 month if we're doing a meeting in the next month, but we're holding that as a strong likelihood to be decided once we do all the research over the course of this month.
And
Okay.
not to throw a wrench into things, but we were very focused on this idea of a hearing. Are there any other ideas that we're not thinking of while we're all together, that we feel could be valuable? I mean, I certainly haven't come up with any, but there's several of us on this Zoom, so.
I think one of the reasons we're like leaning towards the hearing is because it's well defined in the like legal structure of what is the responsibility of our board, whereas other things are like less well defined. And so I think we're just like going in what are well paved paths. Chris.
Thank you. I just want to also point out, off of what was just said, that there was the idea of writing a letter that would also be within the scope of the HRC. So I don't want to like paint the picture that the only way that this topic could be addressed or discussed by the HRC is through a public hearing. It just would be perhaps a different subsection of the 2-3-6. If you look at C3, it's another kind of broad subsection that the HRC is allowed to develop and conduct programs and activities alone or in cooperation with government agencies or community groups designed to increase goodwill among citizens. So, like, I would put the letter into that sort of category. So, just don't want to give the HRC the impression that the public hearing is the only option, because there are other options. Could invite people to come to open comment and talk about this as well. I mean, people are always invited to come to open comment. And so there are other avenues. And if there's ever any questions about what's legally allowed or not allowed, happy to make myself available to work with any of the subcommittees, can schedule a call. So wanted to say that as well.
Yeah. And so that might be a nice thing to just like note if there are people who are like really wanting to be heard, letting them know that they can come to open comment anytime. So that's just a thing that we can communicate to anybody in the community saying, if you want to be heard, you can come to open comment and be heard, and like we will take whatever you say into account. So just as like a short instant thing we can do. Did you have something you were gonna say, Mindy? I saw you unmute.
I was just going to ask because actually, Crystal had reached out to me asking if she could do open comment tonight. Um, and I told her to get in touch with Christian, which I don't think she did because she never responded to me. But is it and I went on the website and it just says attend a meeting. Is that all you have to do in order to be called on for open comment? Okay.
Yep.
That was what I told her I thought, but I said, talk to Christian, he knows better.
Yeah. Just tell them to go on the boulder.gov
Okay.
website for the Human Relations Commission meeting, and they can just attend a meeting, and anybody who attends a meeting can sign up, can share at open comment.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Additionally, for folks, just general knowledge, when you receive the meeting packet, typically that meeting packet has already been posted or will be posted shortly thereafter, online in the boards and commissions materials like button that you would push on the HRC website so folks can see the agenda roughly when we have public comment scheduled. Sometimes we fly through the agenda, so it's a little earlier. But that information is also there. So if somebody's curious around even just like, hey, what's the HRC going to talk about tonight? That information is online. The packet, which has the agenda, the previous meetings notes, and then meeting minutes and audio of previous meetings going back to like 2000. So there is a lot of info there that you can point folks to as well, who are curious around like, where are you at this topic or anything like that.
Appreciate that. Cool. Well, I think that puts us in a good place. We have good orientation around letting people know for open comment. If they want to come talk, share at open comment next month, they can do that. And then we can plan to surface this on the agenda next month with more research and context. That's gonna, I think, help the whole conversation move forward with a loose plan to have a public hearing in 2 months. So cool. Any final comments on this section while we're here? I think we've got a good plan. Cool. Well, thank you all for that discussion. Thanks again, Mindy and Jorge, for all the work you've done up to here. Really appreciate it. Feels like a nice evolution of what we're doing as a commission, is getting us to think about the right thing. So just appreciating where we're moving with it. With that, we will close that topic, and we will move on to just the final one in discussion, informational items, which is just an open call for any completed work plan items. So if anybody has anything they've been working on within the work plan that wants to be shared or named, we'll just open the floor for anything in that. Okay, seeing none, we can, Christian?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Jorge, did you want to?
Yeah.
You were trying to unmute there, Jorge. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thanks.
I was trying to unmute myself. So I put together a PowerPoint to summarize the HRC book.
Oh, great.
Remember that we were planning to do a QR, like some cards, and we attend community events, and being able to share that card with the QR so people can get to know more about what we do. So I put together that PPT. I don't know, Christian, if you want to share it or send it out to the team. I think if you guys think it's useful or it's accurate, then probably we will need the help of somebody in staff maybe that can help us do the QR and link it, somehow so people can access it. I don't know if it's through the website or how.
Cool. Are you
And
wanting
just
to? Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Christian.
I was gonna say, just to this was included, it was the additional slides that were included after the meeting minutes in the packet. I can pull them up now if Jorge, you would like. I'm happy to do that. It just
Oh, I
take
see.
a minute. But yeah, those were in the meeting packet there for you.
I see. Oh, this looks great.
Yeah. It's a very simple PowerPoint. I tried, to create like a animated video. It was too much for me, so I ended up with the PPT.
Cool. I think this is.
Thought it was great, Jorge. I did get to look at it beforehand, and gives much more information about the HRC than is currently accessible and online. And I was just wondering, I mean, obviously I would say Christian and Elizabeth need to make sure it's all accurate, but could it be added onto the website or put as a tab on the website?
You want to speak to that, Christian, or you want me to?
If you can, I am trying to do too
It
many things
looks
at
like you're
once.
multitasking over
Yeah, I'm
there.
sorry, trying to get the
Um,
actual slides to come up and
supportive.
it's freezing my screen.
Yeah, no problem. So a couple of things. And Christian, I checked in very briefly about this maybe a couple weeks ago. Um, the city is required to make sure that any document materials we generate, which includes that from related to the HRC, are digitally accessible, which can be pretty tricky with a PDF or a PowerPoint. And so that's kind of I think one of the first stops is checking for kind of language and, making sure it's accurate, but also checking in with our communications team to see like how can we kind of display this information. PDFs are particularly challenging. We have had that drilled into our into our minds. Web pages less so, which is why the city generally has been moving into the direction of posting as much information directly on a web page as possible. All that is to say, I think if it's something that you're all like really want to move forward and make available, this kind of information in a way that may be a little bit more accessible to community members, we'll certainly take it to our communications team and just see what they say, right? It wouldn't be necessarily on the HRC to kind of create a video or generate a lot of new content on your own. Even as staff members, we work on that collectively with our communication staff to kind of have a comprehensive approach. And what that requires is just making sure it's on their radar. And they can let us know when they have the time to help focus on it.
Cool. That sounds great.
So that being said, it sounds to me, I hear from at least one commissioner and probably two by nature of Jorge taking the work on, and you are two of our newer commissioners, a desire to have another look at the like HRC website specifically around what the role of commissioners is, what the role of a commissioner is, um, mm, like the work that it entails, and like going a little bit deeper than maybe just the mission statement that we have up there, and adding maybe some more of the information that Jorge, you're pulling from the handbook around more of the practical um, commissioner like tasks, responsibilities, what the work actually looks like. And I'm reading that right. And if so, I'm happy to um, like start a conversation or um, figure out how to connect you with our communications person to like share this input, so
Yep.
we can have a dialogue around that and figure out what makes sense and also aligns with our communications, like our existing communication strategy and everything.
Okay. I think at the end of the day, what we say is we need something more concrete, simple that people can go through quickly and don't need to read, a handbook or don't go through the whole website and say, okay, 3, 4 slides and oh, no, this is what you guys do, right? And I was also thinking that probably we don't need cards. We just need the QR in our phones, and then we just share the QR with people, and then that can take them to the PowerPoint and the website.
Yeah. And it sounds like in general, it's like the feedback is that there's not great information about boards and commissions, especially our board and commission, and what's on there. And so I think that feedback to the communications team is great. And I think laying this out as like here's one thing we did, and it sounds like y'all can bring that through the communications team and figure out what the right approach is. But yeah, I think this is awesome that you put this together, Jorge, and it's nice to have something to point towards in terms of like how do we communicate who we are to the community in a better way. And this is a great first draft of that.
And I would just, I agree. And thanks so much for putting it together. I do think the core functions part of what you put together, what I would love to see and probably need consult from staff is specific examples of, you know, um, like develop long, short range priorities in legislation. What are examples of things we've done in the past, just so people understand, because it's pretty broad to the general person coming to the website. Like being very clear about what are the actual issues we're addressing, even though we know it's in the mission and all that. I would love to see a little either example or specific cited there. Um, just a little, making it more accessible to the people in our community.
More tangible, I think is what I'm hearing.
That's the word I was looking for. Tangible. Yes.
Yeah. Um, that is totally fair and something that I also would be looking for if I take my staffer hat off and am just a member of the public looking for ways to engage or ways to get involved. So terrific feedback there. I'm happy to carry that conversation. And is there, um, do folks want to, like Jorge, do you want to be involved? Do you want to have a conversation there, or do you want me just to bring the feedback that we're hearing today?
I'm happy to participate, Kristen.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can do that then. Cool.
Yo estoy de acuerdo con todo lo que se está diciendo y me gusta la idea. Gracias, Jorge, por tu trabajo. Y pues adelante.
Great. Anything more on this? That feels like an awesome step, and it seems like there's some good things to be communicated with communications team. And yeah, just appreciate it again. Cool. Any more things on this discussion item of work plan items? Cool. Seeing none, we will close this section of discussion items and close discussion items. I believe next on the agenda is staff updates. Is that right, Christian?
You got it. Okay, okay, cool. Um, so just in keeping with my typical share outs of goings on and events in the community. Many of these are going to be familiar to you all if you hung in there and read that very long email that I sent in follow-up to last month's meeting with a lot of information. So, as mentioned last time, June is a busy month. We have Immigrant Heritage Month events going on, and so we have two remaining that were funded through the Human Relations Fund. Luna Madre presents Contra Narrativas, Actos de Amor y Compasión. And there is a typo there. But that is what compasión means in English. That's taking place Sunday, June 28th from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Museum of Boulder. We have happening a little bit outside of Immigrant Heritage Month itself, but sorry, my screen is doing something funky. But included no less with the events, Hillel Hill Organization's Immigrant Voices of Freedom celebration, which will take place Saturday, July 18th at the Boulder Chamber of Commerce from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Tomorrow, we will have outside at the Penfield Tate Municipal Building from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. the raising of the Juneteenth flag, which typically is a um, celebration of Juneteenth, obviously, but involves some speakers. We had music last year, and there's usually free ice cream. It would be terrific if folks are in the downtown area, if you could stop by. I will be there. A number of other city staff will be there. It is just a uh, great event to join in on, and um, there's some free ice cream if you can make it. Rocky Mountain Equality also Unwind and Grind dance celebration and workshop on Sunday, Sunday, June 21st, excuse me. That's this Sunday at the Equality Center of the Rocky Mountains. And obviously, Juneteenth itself is Friday, June 19th. City offices will be closed in observation of the day, but that is the actual day that we are commemorating here. Looking out at the June is also Pride Month. So looking out at the remaining Pride events, this past Saturday was Boulder Pride over at the Boulder Public Library parking lot. Celebration, obviously, of the LGBTQ plus community. We have Youth Pride happening on Monday, June 22nd from 5 to 8 at Equality Center of the Rockies, and 50 plus Pride on Friday, June 26th from 4 to 7. And then also of uh, interest to this group, or at least there has been communicated interest at past meetings, our HHS newsletter. A new one came out today. You can click on the link on your screen. And I will also share this out as part of my meeting follow-up to subscribe and receive these newsletters. Elizabeth, anything else that you would like to add or that I'm leaving out here?
No, can't think of anything else. Just a couple of pluses to what you shared, Christian. So a lot of these community events that happen on MLK Day, Immigrant Heritage Month, Juneteenth, um, are opportunities for the city to support boards and commissions like yourself, committees with engagement. And so I happened to be in conversation with some other city staff leading up to Boulder Pride and said, hey, is anybody having a table? And there were a couple of staff who said, well, we thought our committee might be interested, but there weren't enough people. So it's a common issue. It's certainly by no means a criticism, but just an observation. And so a couple of other staff with Christian and I are just we already have a time on the calendar next spring to talk about if no one department or committee or commission or board has enough to kind of have their interest to have our own table, is there some way to share? So just putting out there that it certainly um, can be, we will continue to let you know when these events are happening. And if there are opportunities that you want us to investigate about a tabling opportunity or just coming by and with that stack of flyers or pamphlets or eventually QR codes, we're more than happy to do that. We can't tell you what to do, but if there's interest there, those are some of the work plan items that are easy for us to support you with. And then the other thing is just that uh, along with newsletter, if there are topics that you know you want to hear about, it's really helpful for Christian and I to know that ahead of time so we can bring some information to you in the staff updates. As he said, there's a whole world of topics that you might be interested in knowing about. The newsletter is how you can find out month to month what we're doing in HHS. But if there are some things that you're just make sure you want to know about, even if it's happening in another department, let us know, and we're happy to share that with you. Otherwise, we're just guessing at what you might be interested in. Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Okay, I think that concludes staff updates, Christian. Great. Now we will move on to commissioner updates. Anybody got any updates to share? Nothing from Indy, nothing from Jorge.
Oh.
Okay. I think we've all
Ahora no
probably
tengo nada yo.
Cool. Yeah, nothing for me either. Yeah. Okay. Now we move into what's the last thing, Christian?
Follow-up items.
That one.
Yep. So it sounds like I will do two things. I will connect with Jorge and Mindy around the BBSD conversation and see what how best you would like to move forward, if that's like a meeting with the three of us, or how best I can support that. And then additionally, Jorge, I will work with you to find a time with our communications partner to chat HRC website and eventually QR code handout. I'm drawing a blank on what we're card handout item. So I will do that as well. Anything that I'm missing there on my plate? Cool.
Cool. And it sounds like Mindy and Alejandro will also connect a little bit as well. It's great. Cool. I think that covers all the follow-up items. And that brings us, I believe, to the close of our meeting.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Move to close the meeting.
I second.
Okay. Do we vote on this one? Do we move in second to vote to close the meeting?
Nah, but
You don't
you're
have
just
to.
gonna do it.
'Cause you're not acting, right? You're just following the agenda.
Yeah.
So
we-
some boards do it, but the city council doesn't vote to end their meetings. They
Right.
just
Bang my gavel. The
Yeah.
meeting is herefore closed. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for so much. I think this was like a really productive meeting, and I'm just appreciating how we're relating, how we're conversing, and how we're moving good things forward. So thanks everyone for all the work you do. Thanks, Chris, for joining us. Really appreciate all the perspective you bring, and thanks, Christian and Elizabeth, for continuing to support us in all the good ways. And Elena and Myra, thanks for interpreting. Appreciate all the help from everyone. Okay. Hope everyone has a good meeting.
Gracias.
Good week.
Buenas noches.
Gracias a todos. Buenas noches, Elena, Mayra, muchas gracias. Buenas noches.